Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I think we can start now. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today in this webinar. We are very happy to share with us our knowledge on web development today. I think I can start by introducing myself. So my name is Jade. I'm a digital marketing consultant here at Sciencio. Since a couple of months ago, I've started leading projects in web development as well. And with that, I acquired some experience and knowledge on web development from our specialists in the background. And I also had contact with our clients in the life sciences industry and got acquainted as well with their needs to make sure that they are having a user-friendly and converting website in the life sciences industry. So that's what I want to share with you today, everything that I learned together with Corinne and our other talented colleagues who are also in the chat, ready to support you guys in case you send some questions throughout the presentation. Welcome. I will give the floor to Corinne to introduce herself as well.
Thank you. I should just probably ditto everything you just said. But my name is Corinne. I'm originally from Canada, and I have about 10 years, more or less, working in marketing and communication functions. And for the last 3 years, I've been in life sciences. And around the last year, I've been working at Sciencio along with Jade as a consultant. And as she was mentioning, we've learned a lot by working with our clients, discovering the needs of all the different stakeholders, and developing various web projects for our clients. So hopefully you'll find what we have to present today very useful and informative. And I think we should just get started.
Right, great, thanks. Yeah, as I mentioned, you can pop your questions in the chat. We are going to have a session at the very end, so you can also save some questions for the end, but we do have some team members available to answer your questions in case something comes up. And without further ado, let's get started. So we have a little agenda for today. We are going to be covering some website objectives, how to perform a website audit and understand about the audience that you already have in terms of competitors as well. We are going to talk about look and feel, some tips and tricks to convey a message through your website and also to display the information in a user-friendly way. We know that the life sciences industry is an industry full of content. Things are released all the time. New research is done all the time. So we have to also find a way how to display all that in a website in a user-friendly way. Then Corinne will cover the SEO aspects, also very important technical aspect of websites. A website is not only meant to be beautiful and user-friendly, but it's also important that your user can find you in the search engine, especially in an awareness phase. And then we will finalize with some conversion optimization tips for you to include on your digital marketing strategy, especially on your forums. So let's start with the website objectives. I think this is the very first thing that we talk about with our clients. What do we want with the website in general? And then we can start here talking about why we are doing this. So why are we talking about websites in the first place? Your website is ultimately one of your business cards online. So this is probably going to be the first contact point that a user will have with your company, as I mentioned, especially in an awareness phase. So that basically will set the tone, so to say, of your digital marketing strategy. Of course, we can have a multi-channel strategy on advertising, social media, and whatnot, but the user will land somewhere, and that's probably going to be on your website. That's why it's so important to have a website that is, of course, full of content and what the user needs to find, but also in an easy way. So this is the key to having, a very, I think, tailored digital marketing strategy that all starts there. Talking about the purpose of a website, of course, we can have multiple purposes. One of them is increasing awareness, especially if it's a new company or if you want to rebrand your company or if you've never promoted your company before. That is, yeah, one strategy that is one of the first things to go for, to invest in. Also attracting investors, especially for startups, scale ups. This is yeah, something that we also hear from our clients a lot of times, that the website does not need to be only useful for the final user, but also yeah, for the people who want to join them in the journey. Converting leads, of course. I think the most important and the most mentioned yeah, a purpose as well. Providing information, as I mentioned, in the life sciences industry, we do have a lot of information to be displayed on a website. We have experience with multiple resources types, thematics. So yeah, it's super important to know how to display this information without it being too time consuming or too tiring for the user, and that the user can find this information very easily. And last one, providing product or service details. Of course, this is sometimes more valid in the e-commerce industry. We do have some experience of clients that also invest in web shops. That seems to work pretty well. But for today's webinar, we are going to be focusing on the main purposes that we face when we are yeah, starting a project, usually increase awareness and converting leads. So a lot of times our clients come to us with a great invention, something yeah, very complex, and then they tell us, okay, how do I promote this? How can people find me? And this is what we understand as an awareness strategy in the first place. And then converting leads, when the users are more ready to convert, to reach out, when the user already found the company, then yeah, we also need to think about those final users and what they need to find on the website in order to be able to convert properly and in a time efficient way as well. And then something that we cover also in the initial stages is the customer journey. I'm not going to be going into detail what a customer journey is. I'm going to be explaining why do we use it and why is it so important on the website journey as well. So as I mentioned in the beginning, your website is your business card. So the website reflects the company. And that's why before we start creating something in the digital scenario, we have to reflect what the final user is going to be performing on the website and what do we want them to do. So that's why it's important to map out the potential way that a customer will interact with your company, because this is probably the way that they will interact with your website as well. So the answers that the questions that you get as a company, ideally they are answered on your website, for example. So ultimately, what the customer journey is useful for is to persuade a customer to purchase your product or service. In websites also applicable, but this will kind of guide us how we structure and how we build the website if we know in the first place what the buyer persona will perform on the pages, essentially. How do we do that? Basically, we have to study, ideally with data. That's how, yeah, we do it here at Scientia. Of course, we have multiple meetings with clients. We get their inputs on the questions that they get on their clients that are already existing within the company. But ultimately, we also like to see how the user is behaving on their current website and materials available. How do we do that? I brought here 3 tools that you can start using today. They are free to use. That will give us the basic metrics that we'll need to understand the user behavior. So the first one is Google Analytics. I'm sure most of you might be familiar with Google Analytics. If not, I highly suggest getting in contact with your compliance specialist and your IT support and getting it installed. It's yeah, provide us with a lot of insight on the traffic of your website, the pages that are mostly seen, how much time the user will stay on your website, how what is the percentage of the users who are bouncing back, that is the users who are coming to your website and leaving immediately without performing any action. That tells us a lot of insights. I like to think of it as a timeline. So once I access Google Analytics, I go step by step personally. So the first thing that I look is bounce rate, which is now called engagement rate. This basically tells us the amount of users who are interacting with your website. If I see that we have a high amount of users who are not interacting with the website, I check the source that they came from. So for instance, if they are coming from social media, and they are bouncing back, they are immediately closing the tab and going away, I understand that maybe the content that was created around the website on the social media post was not that relevant. If the user is coming from the search engine advertisement, for instance, so Google Ads, and they are bouncing back, I start checking if the keyword is relevant and if the copy of the advertisement is relevant. And that depends. So I always check the channel to see why the user is bouncing back. Something that you can see as well that can give us a lot of insights when it comes to web development is the top visited pages that tell us the obvious. So what the user is most interested in, probably something that we could keep for the new website, for the new structure. Of course, we can adapt things here and there, but also here we can get the insight. If the user is visiting that page, okay, we have, I don't know, 20,000 users visiting that page, no forms being filled, then what is the problem? If the user is visiting, is staying, is interacting with the page, then maybe we could double check the form, for instance. And also the conversion rate, of course, basically what I was just explaining, yeah, right now. So yeah, definitely recommend Google Analytics. It also helps us a lot when, yeah, we can access data from months or even years from our clients and whatnot. Next tool is Google Search Console. Not as popular as Google Analytics, but also quite powerful tool, especially for SEO. So as I mentioned, it is very important that your website is not only good looking and filled with information and with the right forms, it's also important that the people who are interested in your industry are arriving to your website in the first place. That's what Google Search Console will tell us. So basically, this is a tool that tells us which keywords the users are typing in on the search engine to arrive to the website. That also gives us a lot of insights because then we know where to focus on primarily. Again, if the user is using that keyword to arrive to your website and they are for some reason not interacting with the page, that also tells us a lot about what we have to double check on the landing page itself. So on Google Search Console, you can also ask Google to crawl your page. That means that once you have a new website, for instance, or even your current website, you can see how many pages of your website are seen by Google and are crawled by Google. So what Google does is it sends a bot into your website. This bot will read the content that is written there, and then you will have a relevancy level. Depending on how relevant your page is, it will appear higher or lower on the search engine. So Google Search Console is a fast track to have your pages crawled or indexed. because you can just type in the URL of the page that you want to be indexed, and basically Google will do its job. The other way around is also possible. So for instance, pages that we don't want to appear on Google, we can also point that out on Google Search Console. So your data privacy page is a page that, of course, very relevant for a website, not that relevant for Google, because people are not going to be Googling that about your company. So that doesn't need to show up, can leave space for the other pages of your company, for instance. Another tool that I really like is SimilarWeb. This is a website, so you can just type in on Google SimilarWeb. You will find it probably the first link that you will see. This is very useful, especially for competitor research. So everything that is shown on SimilarWeb will be already shown on your Google Analytics, but from Google Analytics, you can, of course, only access the data from your company. If you want to see how your competitors are doing in the digital scenario, you can use SimilarWeb. You can just type in the address of their website, and then you'll be able to see, for instance, the bounce rate, the traffic that they have per month, and the demographics. I think traffic and demographics might be the most relevant metrics that you will find here, because then you can compare your website. Okay, they are attracting, I don't know, 10,000 users per month. I'm attracting 300, then I have a lot of potential to grow, essentially. So that's what they do in a nutshell. And then I included here some paid tools as well that are very powerful and that are our favorites here at Sciencio. The first one is SEMrush. This is a very powerful tool for SEO, basically. So with this tool, we can get more insights than on Search Console. There is a world of things that you can do with this tool. You can also do competitor research, especially for keywords that your competitors are using and that you are not using. You can check on your own keywords. You can check your Google rankings. So you can see, okay, if someone typed in, for instance, organ on a chip, I can see if I am showing up in the first position or in the 20th position. Then you also know where to work on for your own website. Something very useful also from SEMrush, it gives us something called domain authority. This is basically a score that your website is given that comes from a lot of metrics. Is unlimited list of metrics, but basically it's an overall score of how relevant your website is for the search engine. This can also be checked in SEMrush. And also technical SEO, such as page speed, broken links, alt images without descriptions, images without all descriptions, I mean. An infinite world of data with this tool. We use it a lot and we really like it. Another tool that we also use a lot, especially in the initial stages of web development, is Hotjar. So Hotjar is basically a tool that will give you a heat map of how the users are interacting with your page. So here you can see real user behavior in action. You can see the cursor of the user interacting with your page. You can see, for instance, you have an element on your website, and then you see that a lot of users are clicking on it. Then maybe it looks to the user that this is a button. So maybe this should be turned into a button, or maybe the element should change. So this is how we essentially know how the user is really interacting, and it's very, very easy to visualize because those are basically recordings of real users interaction. So it's very nice as well. Once we have all that, we've gathered all of our data, we analyzed our audience, our buyer personas, we worked on the customer journey, then it's time to move on to the website structure. And then here, the first thing that I like to do is to create a sitemap. So a sitemap, as you were seeing in the graph, in the graphic, I mean, is just the structure of your website. So literally, the pages that will go on the navigation and outside of the navigation bar of your website. So we've talked about defining objectives for your website, but it's possible that a website doesn't have only one objective. Of course, it can have multiple. Something that we see a lot is, for instance, companies that are growing and that need to hire a lot of new team members. So they also want to highlight that on the website somehow, besides their products/services. So then we make the discussion, okay, should this be on the navigation bar? Should this be on the homepage? How should this be displayed to have the required attention? The same happened with resources. Some companies really focus on having very nice resources for their audience, which is super nice. So for instance, if a company wants to showcase their webinars, their brochures, or if they want to show resources under each product that the resources are correlated to, then we also have to make a strategy around how we are going to showcase that, essentially. Something also very common and relevant in the life sciences industry is events. So some companies are very active in events, and they also want to showcase that on their website through a calendar, or even with dedicated landing pages in which users can even book meetings with them. For instance, they can know what the event is about. They can see the LinkedIn profile of the person who is presenting at the event, etc. So this can also be a secondary website objective, for instance. So basically, this is a group effort of getting together with your team and discussing what is essential for us to highlight on the homepage and the main navigation of our website. Of course, just as all things digital, this can change within time, but it's important to come to an agreement for at least the first version for some time. Something else that we do in this structuring phase is also coming up with wireframes. I'm not sure how familiar most of you are with wireframes, but they are also called low fidelity prototypes, especially in the app industry. But basically what they are is sketches of the pages, essentially. So they are created just with lines, or how you were seeing here, with just very basic elements like squares and lines and buttons. And this is made to really visualize how the elements are going to be organized on your website. So if you are thinking about having a new website, or if you're here, you are interested in web development to some level, I suggest this experiment with your team members, getting together and just displaying elements in the way that you would think that they are relevant to be seen. In web development, the order of the elements do mind, because as we mentioned, we have a whole customer journey. So we want the user to go through a journey in order to reach the objective. So what do we want to show them? Do we want them to first look at this resource? Do you want them to first, I don't know, watch a video before contacting us? What do we want them to do? So essentially, that's what the wireframes do for us. Two benefits of the wireframes is that they are very time efficient. As I mentioned, you can even draw them in a whiteboard, on a piece of paper or something like that. This can be a brainstorming exercise. And they are very budget friendly as well, because of the same reasons. So after we agree on that, we can start developing the website in a way that it will actually look like a website. And yeah, it goes without saying that, of course, we have to follow the color palette, the branding of the company. But our experience is that companies like to be a little bit bolder with their websites, just because it's a new digital environment. So you can test things here and there. It's easier to test things on websites, especially A/B test, for instance. because you can just very easily just delete elements or adapt things here and there. Something very important also to think about is images and visual content. Something that we have been experiencing as well is artificial intelligence images, for instance. That's very nice as unique sources of visual content for your website. So yeah, we websites are very, very visual things, so it's very important that you have an impacting strategy on the images as well, especially on the banners. Something that we like to suggest and recommend for clients is also to include team photos to humanize the company and the website a bit, especially if you're focusing on the careers page. That's very nice for your future colleagues to get to know you, essentially. Typography as well. Of course, companies usually have a typography in their brand guide or brand kit, but not all kinds of fonts work on websites. So this is really a decision that needs to be taken together with the web developer, maybe a designer as well would be beneficial in this stage. And why do we do all that? Because the goals of the website are ultimately being intuitive. So when the user sees something, they should know why it's there and what it performs on the website. So for instance, what I was mentioning with Hotjar, that we see sometimes users clicking on elements thinking it's a button. Okay, maybe that's not the most intuitive place to put that element. Our website needs to be responsive as well, of course. As I was saying, the website doesn't need to be only beautiful. It needs to be fast, and it needs to serve its purpose. That's why it's very important to keep track of your technical SEO as well. Accessible goes without saying. I think it communicates with the other points that I was just mentioning. And of course, user friendly. So yeah, the user knows what to do and how to get here and there. Here we have some examples of how to display information in an efficient way. As I was mentioning, a lot of websites in our industry are very content heavy, and it's important for us to know how to display whatever needs to be displayed on those pages. One example of that is something that I really like, which are accordions. So these are elements that when you click, you can expand and then you can read the text. Of course, many users don't read all the text that are on your website, but at least if you attract the attention to the title, especially if it's the unique selling point of your company, for instance, that then the job is already done. And then for those who want to read more thoroughly, they can click and expand the feature. Something that is used especially on the resources pages, for instance, or if you have more than, let's say, 10 or 20 products or services, are the filters. These are very nice suggestion for those who I already mentioned have a lot of resources types, especially. Icons as well. This is something that we personally love, and I know our designer also works very thoroughly in them, and likes to keep the creativity going with the icons. So that's something that we like to have custom made icons, and they can be very fun. And this is one of the examples that I was mentioning, that you can be a little bit more bold with your branding if you want to test something out. Icons are very easy, very simple elements that you could test new things. Sliders, mainly for photos, for instance, or photos that come with a description. I think it's very nice to use sliders, so you don't have only the vertical scrolling. You also have some horizontal movement on the website. Search bars, most of you already know the search bars, but you can include them in multiple pages. You can even include them in your entire website, depending of your company. And then pop-ups. This is very nice, pop-ups, especially when you have a special announcement or when you have the launch of your new website. You can make use of those pop-ups as well. Yeah, and besides that, there are a lot of different things that you can include on your website to display information. You can include maps, you can include, yeah, videos, you can include just, yeah, everything that you want. Basically, everything is possible when it comes to web development. So that's very nice. Here I have some examples of the elements that I was just mentioning. So here are the sliders. You can see here, this is an example from one of our clients. So yeah, you can see basically all the images from the product that they are showcasing. And here we have a very nice example of the usability of a filter, for instance. So so the filter in this case, it's a cross-topic filter. So for instance, you can filter, okay, I want to see a brochure, but I want to see a brochure only on the topic of 3D cell culture, for instance. So you can really cross that out in case you have a lot of resources. That's something that requires little to no time from the client, because whenever you are uploading a resource, you can just tag them, and yeah, it's very, very useful for the final audience of your website. Here, as we were mentioning, I have the accordion. So you can see here what we offer. This is the most important communication to come across the final user. So the user knows that they offer patient safety first, simple and user-friendly, and reusability. If they want to read more about it, then they can just click in the accordion and expand the text. The customized icons that I was referring, these ones, I'm not sure if I can go back and go forwards. So you can see it. These were animated, for instance, so they look very nice. And yeah, this is what I mean with creating custom elements for your website. So that's a very nice way of showcasing what's written. Yeah, what's written here, and yeah, basically calling attention to the elements that you want to highlight. I think that's it for my part. I spoke a lot. Thank you so much, everyone. And I will leave you with my talented colleague, Corinne.
Hi, everyone. So onwards to SEO, search engine optimization. And for the purposes of the next slides, I'm going to be referring to Google, as Jade has mentioned as well. There are, of course, other search engines such as Bing, but I believe there's about 91% of users start with Google search. So for that purpose, we'll be using Google. So for SEO, it's a bit daunting. The search engine optimization with Google, there is literally hundreds of different variables that they have in their algorithm in order to rank your website a certain way. But to simplify it, there are three main pillars of SEO. So you have on-page SEO, off-page SEO, and a technical SEO. So on-page SEO is what Jade was mentioning before about content, copy, and keywords. Off-page SEO is more backlinking, and it's a bit more out of your control because it's referring to people backlinking to your website from theirs. And then the technical SEO is, again, more behind the scenes. This is where a web developer comes in handy, because this, as I'll show you in the next slides coming, very technical stuff. So this is about robot text files and things like that. So first, let's take a step back to on-page SEO. So as I was mentioning, this is about the keywords and keyword placements. There was the tools that Jade mentioned before that can help you create a list of keywords. And it's important not to stuff them in your writing, because ultimately with Google, even though it has hundreds of different variables, it's essentially going to rank your website higher if the user, if the reader, if the customer finds the information that they're looking for on your website. So if the person is typing in 10 steps to success with Google Ads, and this website pops up, it means that it's giving the answer for the customer. So that's more of how you have to frame it with your website as well. Of course, you have a lot of resources, a lot of information, but if you try and structure it in a way that really appeals to the customer and what they're going to type in Google, then you're on the road to success. So with keyword placement, you'll see things like H1, which refers to heading. This is, again, another one of the Google part of their algorithm. So if you have H1 and then H3 and then back to H1, Google sees that as too complicated and not really nice user experience. So automatically you're going to get penalized for not having a nice fluid page for them. You see things like alt image text. So this is a little description of your text itself. This is also really important for Google. On the right-hand side here, you see meta description. So when somebody types something into Google, this is the little snippet that you'll see underneath the URL, which potentially could be to your website, and then the title tag, which is the header of the page. And all of this really plays into ranking well on Google. And this is all things that are in your control. So one of the most important things, as I was mentioning, it's about the user and what they're looking for and if they're going to find the answer on your website. So that's why relevance is key. And to do that, as Jade was mentioning before as well, with the customer journey and buyer personas and things of that nature, that's how you're going to understand the needs of your target audience. So refer back to that journey. Hopefully you've created one at this point, and that will help structure your website through the sitemaps that Jade was mentioning, the wireframes, and into the content as well. The keyword research that I was mentioning, you don't want to overstuff it. It needs to be natural, but again, you need to be answering the questions that your audience is looking for. So what are they looking for exactly? What is their search intention? And really play into that and make sure that each page is focused on certain sections that include those keywords. So you don't want to be mixing different topics all on one page and making it very messy, because again, for user experience, that's not going to bode well. And then therefore on Google, it's also not going to bode well. So building high quality landing pages, having high quality images. You can, as Jade was mentioning about the icons that can get designed, but also making sure they're not blurry and that the alt text is there. And this will all play into a good user experience. Things also like the number of clicks it takes somebody to get to a certain page is of importance. If somebody needs to click 3 different times to find the information, they're already gone. They're already going to bounce. So that's why it's the user experience that we were talking about before is so crucial. And therefore, this all wraps into high quality content as well. And what is high quality content? It's really customer centric, it's customer focused, and it needs to be meaningful to them. You need to use those clear title tags that I was mentioning, and it needs to be organized in a way that suits the user's experience. And then off-page SEO, I was mentioning that this is a bit more out of your control. This is tactics outside of your website to improve your ranking. So with on-page SEO, this is the content, this is the structure, this is the look and feel. All of that is within your control. But the off-page SEO is just that. It's things that are happening outside of your website. So in order to really build up the off-page SEO, you need to do backlinking or link building, guest posting, organic social media marketing, potentially thought leadership. There's some other ways as well, but essentially what it comes down to is having other organizations, and Jade was mentioning this domain authority. So if other organizations have a higher domain authority to you and they link to, say, your blog post, then you automatically rank a bit higher as well. So they kind of, you can ride the coattails a little bit on that one. But it does take time because it's a lot to do with outreach. And you have to build a big network. You have to have those relationships, and you can have that mutual trust, and maybe they link to you and you link to them, and that's a nice way to go forward. But it is really, as you'll see on the next page, it's about 42.6%, not about, I guess that's very accurate, that the backlinks impact your ranking on SEO. So it is a very substantial amount compared to all the other activities that we were talking about. So as you can see with on-page SEO, so obviously the relevant content is very, very important, but having those backlinks to your website really boosts actually your own content, because it means that it is clear, that it has trust has been made with the audience and things like that. And it makes your website more credible. And then the technical SEO stuff, as I was mentioning, this is more back-end things. Jade mentioned as well these bots from Google that crawl your page and help you index or help you rank on Google. And the technical SEO aspects are going to relate to this, but it's, as the name entails, it's very technical. So this is where you have these robot.txt files. Dead links need to be removed. Your page speed for mobile and for computers and desktops need to be optimized. The user experience ties into this as well. Duplicate content can be penalized, so you can't copy paste the same content on 10 different pages and expect to rank higher. And you can use the tools that we showed you before, and they will give you some insight as to how your website currently is performing with the technical SEO things. And the last but not least, the conversion tips. So these are some handy tools and tips and tricks that we've discovered with all the different clients that we've been serving. And essentially with the customer journey, it's not linear. And that's what this slide is showcasing. So they might attend a conference, or they might hear about you from somebody else. And all of this is very difficult to track. So these are all called touch points. So every time a client interacts, or every time a customer, potential customer interacts with you and your company, these are called touch points. And it's very hard to track the points in yellow, just because it's all offline. Even if they attend a conference, sometimes they might not register. So then you actually don't know if they've heard through anyone else. So the only point that you can actually analytically track to a T is when Google and your website step in and they actually contact you via your website or interact with your website. So the conversions essentially help that last part on your website. And we have what we call soft conversions or passive, and then hard conversions, which are more active. So from our experience at Sciential, these three, the newsletter sign up, the resources downloaded, and the contact form, are the biggest converting points on our websites that we create. And the first two there, the newsletter and the resource downloaded, those are soft conversions. So the client doesn't actually need to invest that much in order to get something out of it. So this is probably more early on in their journey, because all they need to do is supply an email address and then they get something. Whereas the contact form is going to be towards the end of the journey, because this is where they need to ask for more specific information, potentially provide you with more information. So that means they're really interested and they're a nice warm lead for you to then convert into a paid sale. And going back to the content for just a second as well, with the messaging, the call to action buttons on your website are also very crucial. So in sales in general, a lot of people do not ask for anything. So they have these wonderful speeches, they have these persuasive texts, and then in the end, the reader or the listener doesn't know what to do with that information. So that's why the call to action buttons are so crucial for conversions. And here we have a few tips and tricks of how to phrase the call to actions in order to entice the customer to actually click on them. So perhaps instead of saying get a quote, you can say book a demo, because that's more concrete, and maybe in that stage of the journey they are wanting more information rather than towards the end, which is a sales quote type of mindset. With something like the download brochure, you can make it a bit more power words with the accelerate and say accelerate your research, and that again can convince people more so than just something like download brochure. And then finally here with contact us, again, this plays into the tone of voice and how you want to convey your culture and your company and everything like that. But it's something like a start a conversation is a bit more relaxed, a little bit more informal, but still can get the person engaged and talking. And lastly, we have form optimization. Now, I think this is probably one of the biggest blunders that Jade and I see on websites, and that is to do with the length of forms. So in general, there is a nice to know and a need to know information. And with forms, usually, depending on obviously the stage in the customer journey, the longer it is, the more likely you will get a customer dropping off and not converting, not filling out the form. So something specifically like we were mentioning with the newsletter, that's a beautiful conversion point, and it happens quite early on in the customer journey. And essentially all you need is their email address. So if you have a form currently, I don't know if you're thinking as I'm saying this, like, uh-oh, we have maybe 10 fields on that one. We do suggest shortening it. And really, instead of having, say, 2 fields, one for first name, last name, just have it name, email address. And then you'll see the form optimizing and converting a lot more than it is. So I think those were the main tips, tricks, and everything. I think we've covered a lot here. I think there was probably some questions in the chat and everything like that. But I just wanted to sort of conclude here with, after all of this, we do have your email address, of course, when you registered. So we'll be in contact with you once we're done in the coming days, and we'll offer you a free website SEO audit. And what this entails is we'll look at the site health, the issues that your website is currently experiencing, potentially your organic keyword positioning, website traffic, and domain authority that you see here. So I believe that is it from our end. So I don't know if there was any, I'm just looking over to Rizgar here, if there was any questions in the chat or anything that came up.
No questions, but they're free to ask, of course.
Yes, if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat now.
In a few minutes, maybe everything was super clear.
Maybe, yeah.
Yes, I think that's it probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys again so much for joining us. Yes, thank you, thank you, Celia. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, I hope you learned something about web development. Yeah, I highly recommend performing one of the exercises that we showed here, especially with the customer journey up until the wireframes. Yeah, if you want to check the technical SEO part of the website as well, as Corinne mentioned, we are more than happy to do so for you. We are going to reach out to you, and yeah, have a lovely rest of the day.
Bye.